If I were to ask you, what do you think your fighters would say about you in one sentence?
Wow. They would say, one of my fighters says to me, whatever you say you're going to do, you do it.
What about your staff?
My staff, Jill's the real one that's in charge.
What about your best mate, Sam Falahati?
So he really likes the version of me that we spoke about. He thinks that's fun and funny, in a very playful and kind way. He has laughs and jokes about the old Davy, and he pokes some fun at me for it.
What about Jill, your partner?
I know what Jill would say. I'm a dedicated father. I'm a hard worker, honest and handsome. I added in the last bit. That was me that said that.
And what about the kids you work with?
I think they would say I was brave and sometimes a wee bit cringy.
Loyalty is one of your biggest values. I've been somewhat disloyal to you and I've went behind your back.
Right.
I want to tell you what they actually said about you. David Galbraith, welcome to the Development by David podcast. Finally, we're doing this.
Thank you. It's a real honour and privilege to be here.
Mate, we've had probably like 10 podcasts in our friendship already. Every time we meet, we just go balls to the wall in terms of just exposing who we are. And I guess for context's sake, my best mate Keegan here and I moved to Glasgow towards the beginning of the year. I felt lost, didn't have a sense of community. We're really new here, no friends, and I stumbled into your gym alongside Keegan. And this well-dressed, kind of bald, muscular man approached me, right? And I didn't know if he was like a parent or he was like the owner or he was just an influential person in the area. But what was weird was seeing someone so sharp dressed, but someone that also looked quite hardened and violent. You could tell that they'd been through stuff, but also so soft in nature. It was like seeing like a monkey on a unicycle with cymbals. Like uniquely or individually, those things aren't that impressive, but combined, it's almost like an illusion. And I feel like your whole story is like an illusion. But I just want to say thank you so much for welcoming us into your gym, into your arms. And mate, it's been a pleasure to get to know you already.
Absolutely. And going back to that first time that we met, like I always feel a connection. People come in through the door in your life gym, and I felt that we kind of clicked straight away and got chatting. So it was good to connect. And like you say, I think there's been about 10 podcasts since then, and I've become a fan of the podcast and feel that it's been a part of my development as well. So it's a really humbling experience to be sitting here with you today, especially when looking at the caliber of the guests that you've had. Like, I'm just a wee guy, like, so that to me is like a very humbling experience. So thank you.
One thing that I really appreciate about you is that you, like you said, you took a keen interest in the podcast as a listener, but also as a sponsor. As the listeners will know, you have sponsored several episodes now that you didn't need to do. You just backed the mission that I was on, and I think it's reflective of the people that had backed you many years ago. So I just want to say thank you for that off the bat as well. And getting to know you, I know you mentioned that I've had esteemed guests like billionaires and psychologists and superstars in the podcast, and that made you feel a little bit of an imposter. But when I think back to the mission statement of the podcast, its motto is to use origin stories as a self-development tool. When I've learned your story, there's no one ever that I've ever met that aligns to the core value of the podcast than you, mate. So to kind of exemplify that or give some context to the listener, I want to show distance traveled, but to get there, I want to ask, who is David Galbraith today in 2023?
Well, today I'm a father, a husband. I am the owner at New Life Gym, head coach, which usually involves changing light bulbs and fixing stuff that's broken and doing as I'm told. I'm also a child development specialist, so I work in schools with children who are facing different challenges in their life, including trauma, ASDs, challenges around neurodiversity. I am also an artist as well, an environmental artist, and I am a mental performance coach. So I have a lot of different titles and I do a lot of different things, but all of which I really enjoy.
And really impactful as well. And when I used the analogy of you're like a chimpanzee on a unicycle with cymbals, that's how I see you just now, because you have so many varying facets of what makes you you. And you're an illusion yourself. But I know this impact, this mission, this drive wasn't always there. It stems from a place of walking the walk yourself. So can we take it back to the origin story of David Galbraith. I know it's challenging, and I'm really excited to get into it, but let's take it back to Yoker and Drumchapel. What was life like?
So I was brought up in an area in Glasgow, areas in Glasgow, particularly Drumchapel and Yoker, throughout my childhood and up to early stages in my adult life. So for people listening, kind of like maybe abroad or don't know the area, Drumchapel is voted like the bottom 10 like most deprived areas in the UK, and the challenges that go on in these areas are, for anybody who doesn't know or isn't aware of it, can revolve around violence, crime, poverty, obviously, poor mental health, addiction, and all of these types of labels. And there'll be people listening today who have also been impacted by living in the scheme life. Growing up, I would say one way of explaining it was very challenging, a lot of trauma, a lot of people dying, to sound grim, and all the challenges associated with that. So I'm very lucky in my journey to be sitting here today and have businesses and have a positive impact on those around me. But I had to fight my way to get here, and that's not a metaphor. I had to fight my way out of the scheme, fight my way out of poverty in a cage, and all the other battles that went along with that, both mentally and physical.
Listen to you put that together, so polished and so enunciated and so intelligent and verbose and well articulated. You come across as such an intellectual, intelligent person, which you are. But I know you weren't always like that. I know you had problems at school. You weren't very kind of engaged when you were at school. What was the schooling system like for you, and how was your interactions with the schooling system like?
So I struggled in the schooling system. I struggled to read and write. I struggled with math. I had, and still do have, some challenges around specifics of memory retention, things like remembering names. Obviously techniques that you can do to overcome these challenges. But I've found out now at the age of, I'm 38 now, about 3 years ago, I found out that I'm ticking all the boxes for ADHD, and I have I've done the test for dyslexia as well. So I'm not just a wee bit dyslexic, I am the stage below severely dyslexic. So school was a real challenge for me, and I found that never got diagnosed in school. It was never noticed or recognised. I was, not all the time, but I was sometimes, and actually a lot of the time, I was punished for the behaviour or the lack of ability to perform in that particular system.
And I feel in the era that you grew up, in the specific era that you grew up, these tests didn't exist. You don't have parents that would push on the school to test these things, so it would probably go unnoticed, and it probably manifested itself in you being seen as disruptive, the class clown, aggressive perhaps. It probably manifested itself in other ways that went under the radar as neurodiversity. I guess a lot of this could be predicated, but not solely predicated on, I guess, those who were supporting you, your parents. I was wanting to know if we could open up about it, what your kind of household dynamic was like growing up.
Things were challenging at home as well. My parents, I would say, had probably similar challenges to the ones that I had in school, except for them, when they were growing up, they would get the belt. They would get smacked about with the belt. They'd get battered, and they had very challenging upbringings. So there was maybe neurodiversity there as well. Sorry, Dad. But we often have a joke about that. But it is genetic, and it can be genetic, and it can be as a result of some of the indicators are trauma related as well. But I was lucky compared to a lot of people where I was brought up, but things weren't solid and consistent. My mum and dad had a difficult relationship. It was a volatile one, so it was inconsistent, and that meant there was inconsistencies in home life as well. So going to school was difficult, and periods going home was difficult as well. Sometimes I wasn't at school, and I was at home a lot, and that was challenging. So juggling, there was home life, school life, and then there was a street life. And then street life was challenging as well because all the kids in the street were going through that. And, you know, the only way to protect yourself really was to hide in the house. And sometimes I'd done that for like months through fear of like getting my head kicked in. I'm talking about the age of like 7, 8, 9, getting battered, like just getting attacked mentally or physically, you know, and then obviously if things aren't ideal at home, then that might not be the safest space as well. And then school's not a safe space as well because you're being punished. And that's like my mum and dad done everything they could for me. Like they always aim to do a better job at parenting than what they went through, and I believe they achieved that. And they've done a lot of really positive things for me. They got me into kickboxing, they got me into like drama classes, and always wanted better for me than what they had. So they made a lot of self-sacrifices and made a lot of really positive decisions. But I used to hide a lot of stuff from my parents as well. I would never tell them half the stuff that I was up to as well. You know, when you're out in the streets, there's all sorts of situations kicking about.
What are some of those situations?
Like you're climbing on roofs. Like when I was 5, I was climbing on a roof for about a 4-story building, and I was up there with an older boy, and he tried to push me off. And the only reason why I never got pushed off is because a bunch of older kids spotted us. Like we were just up there climbing. I had no sense fear. I thought it was a game. And when I realised that I could have died if I fell off, then that really installed fear of heights in me. Then there's other stuff like playing with fireworks. You could just buy fireworks off of somebody in the street, and you're lighting up fireworks and throwing them at each other, like because you think it's funny. Do you know what I mean? And it was funny at the time. Like it was a lot of fun until somebody nearly got their face blown off with a firework. You know. A lot was kind of climbing, you know, jumping back gardens, you know, throwing fireworks at each other. I remember there was a situation when we were younger, like we all decided that I never went as far as like actually doing this part, but my pals were breaking into trains and stealing detonators off them. So running across the railway tracks, breaking into trains, stealing detonators and the like emergency escape axes and stuff like that. And the detonators were basically like explosives. So like if you like put it on the train track, it'd be used as like an emergency thing to get the train to stop. And one guy nearly got his face and his hand blown off with one, and we were throwing them about like they were toys. You know, like I mean, I think a lot of kids, like I remember when I was like really young, it's kind of funny but a wee bit sad. Like I was at 5, like I remember having this wee pocket knife. And it's like, and I remember these boys came down, these guys, the big guys to me at the time, they were like 10, right? And I was about 5, and they came down and they were like targeting me and came into my street. And I went home I ran to my auntie's crying, and she went through me and she's like, you better go down there and take him on. And she pulled out this big rusty chain from underneath the sink, and I couldn't even lift it, and I pulled this rusty chain out. And I went up to the guys, and I remember like they actually ran away, and I couldn't even hit them if I tried. But like it was kind of like dog eat dog. Like, and if you didn't fight, if you didn't learn how to fight, or you didn't like meet it like that, then you would ultimately become the victim in that situation, where you would not only get battered, but there would be like a social shame about that as well, that then you would be deemed as a weak one, and then the one who could further then be targeted. So it was like as a kid, it felt like do or die. And to be honest, it was not that far off do or die as well. As things progressed, as I got older, the violence became more extreme and even more weaponized.
Remember something you told me, mate, was that your currency was violence.
That's right.
And it seems that you quickly became, in that sense, one of the richest men in the scheme in terms of violence. And I keep hearing you say that you were the lucky one. You're really lucky. And I now think about my story, which is ladled with hardship and challenges, a very similar but different upbringing, but nowhere near as intense. And I'm thinking to myself, I've had it so easy. And then you, in your case, you're thinking, I've had it so easy in comparison to some others around you. It's just such a weird paradox that we always have this weird gratitude complex that, oh, we're the lucky ones. In fact, your story, it is hard. There's no luck about it, mate, in my opinion. And I want to reflect on your fear of heights, how like this one childhood memory is like really ingrained and stuck with you for the rest of your life. And you told me a story about witnessing a brain on the street. Was that around that same time as well?
Yeah, so that was probably about 2 to 3 years later. We moved house into high-storey flats, and I was with my mum. Never forget the day, as clear as day. And walk out the high flats, and I say to my mum, "Look, there's a brain on the curb." And she's like, "David," like she's rushing, we're going to my grand's or something like that. And she's like, oh, David, stop talking nonsense. I'm like, "No, mum, look, there's a brain." And I wasn't like pure shocked to it, but I was still dead young. Like I was like, there's a brain, and there was nobody attached to it. It was just like lying on the pavement. And she's like, "David," and I was like, "No, honestly, mum." And she turned around and she looked at it, but when she's looked at it, she's seen behind the brain like a guy's body on the street, and it was very grotesque. It was like body parts everywhere, like really one of the worst things you could see, really, to be honest with you. And my mum starts screaming and starts crying, and she pulls me in, and she's like really distraught. But that for me was like a link from when I was on that roof and that person tried to push me off it to what could have actually happened. So I was looking in front of me and going, oh, wait a minute. So it wasn't just the one situation. It was then the link, because although I knew he was trying to push me off that, I didn't really fully understand what could happen if I fell off it. Like people tell me you'll die and stuff like that, but I witnessed it, and it was that from there onwards. I do believe that I did have a fear of heights that I've worked on. I've worked on myself to overcome that, or at least most of it anyway. And that really, like, it had an impact on me anyway. You can't say that like it never, but the fear of heights did. I do believe that had an impact on that.
That's crazy, mate. It's crazy that manifested onto something that you've had to work on. An early childhood experience resulted in a trauma or fear that you've then actioned as an adult. One of the things similar to that I've seen you do in that kind of repetitive cycle is, like, you were very open with me about how you were parented as a young person. And now I see you as a father and a coach to so many young people. And it seems like what you experienced as a young person has maybe poor role modeling perhaps has allowed you and enabled you to be a really great role model. A lot of the lessons from that hard time is what's made you into the kind of father figure and coach that you are. Can we touch on some of the kind of early childhood trauma that might have happened in the household to show the distance traveled to where you're at now?
Yeah, we can touch on some of that. And before we say that, like there's poor examples of mentoring or like of parenting, and there's good examples. And although things were difficult at home in terms of like some of the situations that I found myself in, particularly my mum had a drink problem. She wasn't drunk all the time, and sometimes her and my dad would get into full-blown arguments. Barney's had to wake up in the middle of the night, and these things happened. But at the same time as well, like, there was the other side to that as well, where I've learned to be a good father. Like, my dad taught me how to be a good father, and ultimately, like, he's been a real positive role model in my life and really shown me how to be a man. My dad's the best man that I'll ever know, and I'm so proud to call myself his son. I'm so proud to have him as a father. He's helped navigate me through a lot of stuff. He's given me a long leash with the stuff that we're going to talk about as well. Very forgiving. My mum as well, like on Mother's Day, like when I was an adult, like on Mother's Day, she comes up to hospital because I've been stabbed 6 times. Do you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And they always forgave me unconditionally. And, you know, I know a lot of parents would have kicked me out as well. So, you know, we're all just figuring this stuff out, and, you know, I'm figuring out how to be a parent myself. I want to be the best possible parent I can be, and hopefully I'm achieving that. But, you know, you do learn lessons along the way on what not to do and what to do. And I feel that it's even more important to me sometimes is, like, you know, maybe not to do certain things. And, you know, it's equally as important to do the things that they did do right. Like, get me into kickboxing, get me into, like, martial arts training, you know, get me into acting, like, when I was younger, like a lot of other kids' parents would never have thought of that. But at the same time as well, like, you know, there was situations that I was in that I just shouldn't have been in as a child. I just shouldn't have been. But this as well, when I work with kids, is like, I can understand what's happening in their life because I know they can't say anything, because it's all kept hush behind closed doors. You can't get into school and tell them what's happening, in case there's, like, social work or anything like that going on. So, like, I understand that with kids, and, you know, there's like that level of understanding, empathy that makes me so, it's made me so successful what I do with children.
And so unique as well.
And so unique. But I think, like, that is the difference when I work with kids, is like, I have that map, I have that roadmap. Oh, there was times, and I can talk about this, and it's like, when I was a kid, when my mum was on the drink and things weren't good at all, like, I remember as a kid, I wished that somebody would come and, like, rescue me, like some kind of, like, now you see these, like, heroes in movies, like something like that. But I now, knowing that, I know that other kids will be thinking that as well, and hopefully I can be that person for them in some level, in some way. Like, I know for, like, some of the kids that I work with, I know for a fact, like, I'm now a father figure in their life because they don't have a father. Their dad's not there. They tell, like, remember I went to my kid's sports day, and this wee boy just turned around and went, I wish I had a dad like you. And I genuinely walked away crying. I walked away crying because I looked at that wee boy, and I knew he meant it, and I knew that things weren't good. And this was in the same area I was brought up in as well. And, you know, but with that, I take a huge amount of responsibility, and I engage with kids in the way that they need me to engage with them. But again, it's all down to the experiences, and as well, like I say, the positive experience. My dad's great with kids as well. Like, he's shown me how to be around kids, and, you know, that's something that the right combination that I feel that I've got that can really be a useful tool, and helping kids overcome some of the same challenges that I managed to overcome as well, whether it be through hard times or someone helped me get through it.
And I'll hold my hands up as someone who's a recipient of that support as well. I have a very fragile relationship with my dad, and I'll be transparent on the podcast because you're being transparent. I don't really see my dad as a father figure anymore at this age of my life because I'm the caregiver at the moment. And getting to know you recently, despite you being a kind of brother figure, a friend figure, a mentor, and a coach, there's aspects of our relationship where I see a father figure in you the other day I got really good feedback from work and I shared it with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, I shared it with you before I shared it with my dad. And that's the level of trust and vulnerability that you've shown me. The stories that you've told sing a lot of the same hymns as my own story. And that's developed a relationship where I'm proud to present certain milestones in my career and my personal life to you. And I know my mates have as well. So again, the reason I wanted you on this podcast is to show the distance traveled. Like the fact that you have been so cheerful in adversity, you've taken 30 plus years of hardship almost and transformed it into a support mechanism for people just like you that need it the most. And you have become that superhero. You've become that father figure for not only young people, but people at my age, people that look from the outside in that have their life like totally wrapped up and fine. Like you have become that person for me. So I just want to say thank you. And I want you to know that personally, and I'm going to speak on behalf of people I know, you are definitely that superhero, mate.
Lost for words, to be honest with you. That's unbelievable. Like, for you to say that, like, I have a huge sense of pride, achievement, and gratitude that I'm that person for many people, and for yourself included. That means a lot to me. Like, and I'm lost for words, mate. I think I appreciate you saying that.
I'm going to change the tone now because I know you weren't always that person. You were a wee mental Davey at one point. This is where we really show the distance travelled. And this is why that sentiment really rings true. You weren't always that guy. Fighting was your currency. Let me know about the most violent version of Davey. Back when you were younger, what did life look like before you were on this transformative journey?
So as I started becoming an adult, 16, 17, 18, I'll just tell it in the story in the kind of order that things happened. I ended up, I'll just go through it in the kind of how I got charged. I got charged with a serious assault when I was like 18. Got in a fight with a bus driver. And it wasn't like I jumped on the bus and started attacking him, right? I was drunk and I was out of line and I was falling asleep in the bus and I was just in a bad state, and I was with a couple of pals. I was with my girlfriend, my pal at the time. So get on, we'd been steaming, we'd been drinking vodka straight in McDonald's, like absolute clowns. Like literally like a bottle of vodka on the table, like drinking that. And no regards for perception, anybody else's perception of us, just drinking it straight out of the bottle, having a laugh. Nobody would even say it to us. This was in the middle of city centre. And we just thought that was fun and acceptable. And then we got on this bus. And I pissed in the bus and I fell asleep. And then the bus driver was like, somebody's pissed in the bus, fell asleep. But my girlfriend and my pal at the time were getting everybody abuse on the bus. Like, and I said to them, I was like, listen guys, I was like, leave it out and stop talking to people like that. I wasn't happy with their conduct, despite the fact I'd pissed in the bus and fell asleep. Because I was all right. Stop doing that. And then I'm pissing in the bus. And in all fairness, I was busting. So when you need to go, right? But no, I shouldn't have done that. I really shouldn't have. I shouldn't have done that. The bus driver like clocks me, comes up, starts flinging me about. And at that point, he put his hands on me. And me and him start rolling about. And then he's punching me, I'm punching him. And then there was a bag with the vodka bottle on it. And I can't remember if it was me or the other guy that had it. And it swung and it smashed off one of the poles on the bus. And it ended up, the guy grabs me and tries to pull me, or he was trying to pull me into his driving seat. Best dad, my dad was a bus driver back in the day as well. So, like in a weird turn of events, and ends up we are fighting. I'm punching him in the face. He's punching me. It's a fight, right? Like, and ends up we get out and we get to jail. We get to jail and got up to co-op. and plead guilty to it. And the lawyer says to me, oh, here's the deal. You never pissed in the bus, so you never pissed in the bus. You just need to admit that you attacked him unprovoked, and you'll get community service. And I'm like young, 18, like, and what I didn't sit right with me. I was like, I want to plead not guilty. Like, he put his hands on me first. I pissed in the bus, and he's like, no, this is the deal. So it ends up, I pled guilty to my lawyer's advice. And that was my first kind of situation with law. It left a bad taste in my mouth because it wasn't honest. That was the deal. So it ended up, I got done with serious assault. And I think that was like, the guy had like a broken jaw and stuff like that. That wasn't my intention. Although I shouldn't have been in that situation. Ideally, I shouldn't have assaulted him. I shouldn't have pissed in the bus. I shouldn't have been drinking vodka at McDonald's. I shouldn't have been with the people I was with. And ultimately as well, with the people on the bus perception of me, like my pal and my girlfriend at the time were giving them dogs abuse. And they've ultimately just like been like, they've got a bad picture painted to me already and then they see me wrong about. So those witnesses and all that. So that's how that turned out. And I got community service. At that point I became homeless and through choice. A lot of people say that people don't choose to be homeless. I chose to be homeless.
Why?
To be honest with you, my mum's behaviour around about drink and her attitude when she was drinking was very destructive, and she was dealing with her own issues, and I couldn't live in that environment as an adult, so I had the choice to not live there. Became very volatile and quite abusive, and I went into a homeless unit, and there I was linked to people from different parts of the city. It was actually like an adults children's home. It was ran by the Scottish Children's Home, and it was all people who have been like off the back of charges and stuff like that, and they'd show you how to like cook and stuff like that, and it was managed. It was kind of like a very minimal security prison for young people, and it was dressed up as this kind of like nice kind of well-to-do thing. But it was like, so I was a boy there from the East End and a girl there who I later got in a relationship with. So they two were together at the time, and then I met them and we're like, right, cool, when we'll get one night, we'll get a drink. So we get a drink, and then I go, by the way, I've got a pal that can drive us to like Springburn or something like that, so we could go and get like hash or something. It was like council hash. And so we're driving, we get in this car, right? So get in this car with this guy, I don't know him. Gets in, he's good but older than us and stuff. And I noticed like in the middle tray where the handbrake is, there's this like wee Swiss Army penknife. So he starts driving, and then he goes, oh, I'm on Class A drugs. And I'm sitting in the back, and I'm like, oh, who is this guy? This is dodgy. So ends up, we're driving down Maryhill Road, and he starts swaying. So he's out, he's fell unconscious. I think it's like heroin or something like that, some kind of like sedative he'd been taking. So he starts swaying on the wrong side of the road, and there's a bus coming towards us. And there was a girl in the front, and she pulls the steering wheel. And then the car runs off the road and crashes into a fence. So out of panic, I grab the knife, right? And actually my ex-girlfriend was there at the time. No including this other girl who I got with later. And we just decided to start walking home. We're all kind of like shocked and shooken up, right? Sobered up and all that. We had a few beers, right? But we weren't steaming or anything like that. Started sobering up. Nearly died, do you know what I mean? Nearly went a head-on collision with my bus. And then this car drives by, and it's like a team, like girls and guys in it. I think it was just mostly girls, right? So they're all at the window waving. And then my girlfriend at times, like, she's like, are you looking at him? And I was like, you know, we had one of their relationships, right? And the both of us were dead young and been through a lot, and she had as well. And we got into an argument. So we're in an argument in the middle of the street, and then somebody phones the police, right? Because she cracked us, and ends up police show up, like, you got anything on you? And I had this down my sock, right? So I went, I've got this penknife down my socks. He pulls it out, puts handcuffs on me, jail, done my knife, right? So it was a wee Swiss Army knife, right? I shouldn't have had it anyway, right? And so I get done with that, and then I try to, through this time, like I'm always, I know there's more to life. I know there's more to it. Like, I'm trying to get myself out of this situation, and I want to have pals, and I'm linking up with people, and it just ends up like you're so submerged in it. Like, you go from one thing to another, to a worse situation, and then so following on for that. I mean, I was getting in fight, like, Glasgow was early 2000s, right? Stab capital and murder capital of Europe, right? Like, growing up, see by the time I was 23, I'd lost like 17 or 18 pals dead, like either drowning, drink, drugs, getting run over, like car crashes, both, like that's like war statistics, getting stabbed, murdered, you know what I mean? Like, these things were like just like normal to us. And so, but by that point, like, I've been going out, up dancing, up nightclubs, stuff like that, and we're just getting in scraps all the time. Like, I'm talking about, like, sometimes my problem was I would take on anybody. So I had, like, one night I had like 7 guys attack me with knives and all that, and like I knocked most of them out. Like, I knocked most, and it was a targeted attack. Targeted, they didn't know who we were. They were just targeting somebody for the sake of targeting somebody. They didn't know who I was, and didn't know who my pal was. And me and him were always at kind of nightclubs and stuff like that. And I remember like that was happening on the regular. And my pals knew I could fight. People knew that I could fight. Like, I could handle myself. And one thing I will say is, like, I never intended ever to start a fight. I didn't like starting fights, but I wouldn't back down, like, for anybody. I would take on like 10, 20, 30 guys. Like, and I just had that mentality.
And violence started to gravitate towards you because of that, because violence became your currency and you had so much of this currency, it seemed like you attracted violence, and your social status increased because of how violent you were. Absolutely.
And people would then see me as almost, and we've seen each other as like, as a hierarchy, as one to take down. And, you know, by that point, the people started to find out these things about me, and it was kind of like, oh, who do you think he is, and stuff like that. And that then led me to when I got stabbed, and that was really tough, like, because the guy who had mentioned, a friend of mine who had been involved in me with these situations, and the situations with both of our participation, like, he'd phoned me one night, and he says, oh, you know, these guys are in my house, you know, I don't know what to do, can you come up and help me, stuff like that. And I was like, and he knew I would go and get him, he knew I would do it, he knew, because I'd done it before. That night with the guys, the 7 of them attacked me with blades and all that, like, and I'd knocked most of them out. Like, I'd done that because he ran away, fell, and then fell unconscious, which happened a few times. He ran away for a fight, and then he would fall unconscious on the street.
Loyalty was one of your biggest values and traits.
Absolutely. And I was very loyal to my friend, and he knew that I would come to support him. So first thing I do is get a taxi, and I got his house, about 18 at the time, and I got in, and there's about 8 guys that I know all of them, right? Went to school and all that together, right? And some of these guys had it tough, man. Like, honestly, like, now we're talking about like there's been tough aspects in my life, tough aspects of your life. These guys had it tough, like, real tough. And at that point, like, I was trying, like, I had a job, I was getting back into martial arts training. I I had a girlfriend, although the relationship wasn't perfect, far from it, but you know, I was making steps towards trying to get out of this lifestyle. And you know, I don't think it was well received. In fact, it wasn't well received. So maybe a bit of jealousy, maybe. All right, wouldn't surprise me. Okay, I can't tell what other people are thinking, but that's my perception of it. So I get a phone call, go up to the house. I get into the living room and all them are there, right? So they're all like taking eckies, smoking weed, drinking, stuff like that, right? All the kind of stuff that I used to do. I'm trying to break away from this. I'm not wanting to be involved in this anymore, right? So actually everything seems pretty chill. But I noticed like it was before cell phones and stuff like that, you had a landline. It was a small living room. And I'm like, how can he phone me crying, saying that they're all going to kill me and stuff like that? How can he phone me they're crying on the phone without them knowing? And I was like, something's not right here. But I still wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, give them the benefit of the doubt. So like, oh, do you want an eckie and stuff? I was like, no, I don't want one. Do you want a bucket or do you want like a joint? I was like, nah, I'm all good. So I had a beer. I brought my own beer. So it ends up, I'm like, I say to him, listen, mate, we better get out of here. Just leave them in your house. Let them trash the house. All right, just let them trash it. I was like, and we'll just go. You can come with me. So we did that. We start walking at the living room door. And right before I got to close the living room door, one of them gives me the finger. And I just hear them all charging down the hallway. So I'm holding the door shut. So I'm holding the door shut. And there's like 7 of them obviously pulling on it. Me and my mate who had phoned me to come get theirs outside, he's there. I'm like, hold the door, but he's just watching me. So they just overpowered me. They all spill it onto the close, which for those of you who don't know, it's a landing with like kind of stairs and stuff like that. And I'm just fighting these 7 guys, right? But it's just dead up close and intimate. But these other guys who used to fight, they didn't know me, right? These guys knew me for being a child and stuff like that. So they didn't maybe have I didn't have the psychological advantage that I maybe had with other guys. Do you know what I mean? Like so it was up close and personal, and then they're on drugs and stuff like that as well. So I'm smashing one of them in the face and just nothing's happening, right? And they're bouncing buckfast bottles off my head, like so. Ends up I get a cut. I've got a scar here and a scar there, right? So I'm bleeding, right? Now I know through my participation in combat sports and watching like UFC and stuff like that, I know if the blood gets into my eyes, like I'm going to be blinded, right? So that's one thing that can stop a fight. I was very kind of like in and out. Yeah, I wasn't like the way I'm just now, or the career or the dedication I had to my career. So it ends up I know our time is limited. I run down the stairs. This other guy's coming in through the door. One of their pals, I lamp him, drop him, and then I'm running. And I realise I'm running towards a road, and at this point I'm blinded now. Like I either run blind onto the road, or I turn around and I fight these guys blind. So I either run blind or fight blind. I was like, I'll fight blind. So I turn around, I'm fighting them, and obviously can't see. I'm down in the deck, so I'm getting hit with bucket bottles, getting smashed, getting my head kicked in, and then before you know it, the top guy, the most violent guy, he was the richest in terms of violence. He smashes a bottle and just starts getting me like in the neck and the head and all that, like in the hip. I got stabbed 6 times. I managed to wipe the blood at my eyes. I seen an opening and I ran across the road. The one place I ran was the boy that phoned me. I ran into his mum's house because it's the only place I knew that I could go that was safe. It was just pure instinct. I remember lying on her living room floor. It was just wall to wall blood, like the whole place was just saturated in blood, like coming at my neck and all that in my head. Ambulance comes, and he watched this. So he sat like didn't intervene, like just watched it, like, and you know, went to hospital. They stapled me, so it's just a staple gun, just back of the head, like 30 staples, just imagine somebody just going at your head with a staple gun, just giving it loud. That's what it was like.
No painkillers either?
No, just straight in, staple, stitched up here and here, and then I was getting tested by a neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon had said if it, a couple of millimetres one way, it would hit my main artery, which would have just killed me outright. A couple of millimetres the other way, it would have left me paralysed from the nerve down because it had actually partially severed a nerve. But they're going to need to operate on my neck because there's nerve damage, there's a partially severed nerve, and if the nerve becomes fully severed, then I'll be in a proper situation, basically. So in the operating theatre for 14 hours, not 18 hours, right? Thanks to amazing work that neurosurgeon done. If he's listening today, thank you so much for saving my life and giving me that quality of life. And, you know, woke up next day, it was Mother's Day, my mum was there, girlfriend at the time, my dad, my niece, I think my sister was there as well, and I had a drain in my neck and stuff like that. So I was in my bed for like 3 months with this drain in my neck, and I was like, it was all like I couldn't move it because they'd done the operation. And I was just sitting in my room in my own mind, like the CID came out and they just said, "Oh, this was a gangland thing, wasn't it?" Like, and I was like, I don't know what to say. And I was scared, like those repercussions, very vulnerable situation. I do know that was a low category, and the police system, it's a low category kind of like investigation. They call it shit on shit. That's what it's called, right? So shit on shit is just like they call gangland stuff. Kind of deserved that
because the nature of where it took place, who was involved.
Absolutely.
They didn't put, if that was in an affluent area, it would be a high case, but because it was in Yoker, Drumchapel, Milngavie area, it was deemed less important. Yeah,
I was in Yoker, so it was like, for them, it was just like, it's just a gangland thing, so they kind of deserve that. That was my home, do you know what I mean? Like, that was my pals. Like, that was, you know, granted, like, I wasn't, like, best behaviour either, like, but, like, I still got stabbed. Like, still tried to kill me. It was a murder attempt to try to kill me.
It's traumatic.
And to be honest with you, like, I'm not that bothered about it. I don't hold it against, like, that like, there's, most of the police I know are decent guys, do you know what I mean? And girls as well. One of my good pals, she's like amazing post, and, you know, it's just a system. It's the way it is, and that is the way it is. But, and it ended up, like, I decided that I really wanted to dedicate my life to fighting. I wanted to become a UFC fighter. I wanted to become a professional MMA fighter. I wanted to travel the world. And to be honest with you, I wanted to get revenge on the guys. Like, I planned it, I plotted it, I trained myself, and I decided it was never going to happen again. That's never going to happen to me again. I decided that I also want to improve myself and become something different, somebody different. I also knew that I couldn't put myself in those situations with people like that because it really was life or death. So I had to change the people that I surrounded myself by. I was very angry. And that, you know, that violent streak, if you call it that side of me, like, that is a fire lit. But I knew I had to channel that somewhere. I knew that wasn't, that couldn't live in the streets. So, yeah, I had all that going on, and obviously, like, you know, there was a lot of trauma. And then shortly after that, as I'm still recovering, I'm out one night again with my pal, and then this other guy starts on us, and he knew me. So I was 19 at the time, right? So this is shortly after this has happened, right? So this was like, I just started kind of going out and starting. And to be honest with you, I didn't go looking for trouble or anything like that. I went out to party and stuff and meet new people and socialise. Like, I really liked that. I'm a very sociable person. I've always been like that. And in Glasgow at the time, town was a dodgy place, very dangerous. And this guy goes for me, right? And I found out later that he knew me. So me and him end up fighting, and, like, we are scrapping for, like, it felt like 20 minutes, right? It might have been half of that, but even if it was 10 minutes, like, fights don't last that long. Like, they just don't. Like, a fight's like 2 minutes and it feels longer than what it is. And I had witnesses and stuff like that, they said the same. So me and him are scrapping, and I remember, and I think, why is this going on so long? This isn't supposed to happen. And just as I'm thinking that, I throw a punch and his nose busts open. which I later found out it was broken. And then he hurt his arm, and he grabbed his pal, flung his pal in front of me. He's like, your cards are marked, mate. I'm gonna get you. Gonna get you and this kind of stuff. And I was like, that's fine. I later found out he was a good bit older than me. And I later found out that he was serious and he was planning on targeting me. And this wasn't just a one-off. So I was pretty scared. Do you know what I mean? I was pretty scared. Him and all his pals and all that. They're a good bit older. Could have been about 10 years older. All got cars and all that. Like, I was quite amateur from age as well, as you can probably tell. You know. So, and I'm still dealing with all the other stuff as well. And people are sending messages like, this guy's coming after you, he's going to kill you and stuff like that. And he took a big social hit as well. Do you know what I mean? He talking about violence as currency. Like,
he became bankrupt almost after that experience.
Absolutely. He was rock bottom. This wee guy that nobody knows, that he's just walked up and started smacking the boots, like basically broke his nose and his arm.
So what happened next?
So I noticed like there was guys driving about, like maintaining eye contact, like following me, stuff like that, or at least I was seeing it that way. And then one night I'm walking into the shop, I'm with my niece, she was only like 5 or 6 at the time, right? She lived with us on and off, and I'd later adopted her for a period of life, for a good couple of years, and saved my parents and stuff. But she was dead young, and I'd said to her, I was like, we're walking into shops, and these 3 guys approached me. And I was like, you better go home quick. So I go around, she goes home. The 3 guys gave me an absolute bleaching, kicked my head in. For some reason, I don't know why, I didn't fight back. I don't know what happened, right? I didn't fight back. I was in a different mentality or something. I think maybe it's because my niece was there, right? I just hadn't like switched into that mode as such. I was like, and then maybe it's something to do with being stabbed or something, I don't know. And ended up, I just went, I've had enough of this. Like, so I went in the house. My dad had an ornamental samurai sword. And before you know it, we're out in the street with a samurai sword. And a big one, it's like that size, right? It was a pure belter, all right? It was huge.
Wasn't
right?
to cut butter with, no?
No, it wasn't for that. And, you know, so I'm swinging this about. Police are out, police helicopters. My dad's in the street. I get to my dad, my boss at the time, who was my guy who obviously employed me. He's like, David, get in the house. So he pulls me into the house. It's like police motors everywhere. Everybody's out in the street. Like, I'm jumping the backs, crawling through bushes and all that. Don't want to get caught. In all fairness, my parents and all that, like I say, loyal as can be, backing me up. Like, police are up at the door. It was wild. And then I've just went like that. I was like, see all the guys? I was like, I'm going to track them all down. So I had like blonde spiky hair at the time. So I shaved it off so I couldn't get identified. And
because you were wanted by the police, right?
Aye. So I was on the run for about 3 months. And then like I targeted each one of the guys. So like I got them one by one, because obviously they got me in a group, and obviously I pulled out the samurai sword as well. So it ends up I'm walking down to the shop, my wee cousin, and then I clocked the freedom, and I was like, right, jumped in a taxi up the road. I get into the Chinese takeaway, and I say, can I have a chicken noodle soup? Give me a chicken noodle soup, and I just walk out and just go like that right off their face. Like, then like, I'll get them one by one. So like I got up to one of them, and I found out where he was, start talking to him, threatened him, just says, listen, is this it? Guy starts crying, and he's like, listen, it wasn't me, it was all this other guy. So then I move on to the other guy, and he was working delivering kebabs or something like that. So I jump in the kebab place, jump up on the counter and all that, and like start threatening him. I knew the guy who owned the place. He's like, it wasn't me, it was all the other guy. So they're all kind of blaming each other. And then move on to the other guy, and same thing. Like, so they all kind of like backed right down, and that was it. I was like, right, cool. sorted. Like that's it, sorted.
Got your revenge.
I don't think it wasn't so much like for revenge for me. I think I was trying to control the situation. I think like what I was trying to do was neutralise the threat. Because I actually didn't like hurt any of them apart from the soup pang, and even that was flexing, right? You know, I didn't like actually follow through with a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have, I don't know. Like if I was pushed enough, like I obviously could have. I found that I was trying to neutralise the situation. I was trying to neutralise the threat. And actually, I was very effective at it. Very effective. I knew what I was doing when I was doing it. I had such clarity, I thought, but in the wrong way. And I realised then, I was like, how can I do this? Like, how do I know how to do this? And it did, like, but then it moved up. I was like, who's bigger and badder next?
You couldn't stop it if you tried. This kind of trajectory you're on.
No, I was gathering momentum.
Yeah.
It was like, so they're like, right, let's not mess with him. Before I know what I'm looking, like everybody's scared of me, right? Like, and I didn't know this at the time. I was like, I was scared. Like, and then before you know it, I'm out in the street again, and something else is kicked off, and I'm having a sword fight with a guy with a machete. Do you know what I mean? Like, we are like swinging machetes at each other. He's driving on the pavement, trying to run me over, like, aye. And then, so this guy was serious, man. He was, a lot of these guys have been done for like attempted murder and stuff like that as well. So this wasn't just flexing. Like, I knew these guys had done time for stuff like that. And I was so submerged in it. I was so hyper focused on this that I only felt like I only knew one way, and that was to be more violent, be more scary.
Is that what led to the firearm?
Yeah, so I found myself in a situation. A guy's driving about in a Stoller, pulls up, points a shotgun at my face, and he's just flexing, right? He's showing off, there's girls and all that there. And I'm like, with this particular guy, he was flexing. So he's like, got a gun at my face. And I'm like, listen, mate, I'll take it off you and I'll put it where the sun don't shine. And I remember at the time I actually found it quite funny. And that just shows you the mental state that I was in. I didn't care at that point. And then there was this other guy who actually wasn't related to that incident, who was going to shoot me. So it ends up, I walking down the street, get done with the police again. The police are now targeting me, right? They know who I am. I've been done for stuff before, and they jail me. They find this firearm on me, and this is that. Like you can see a sequence. It's like assault, knife, samurai sword, firearm, right? It's like, and the people are getting bigger, and I'm matching it every time, right? So at this point, I'm probably about 20, right? And I'm like, right, I need to get out of this. Like, I need to. But then my partner at the time, she became pregnant. And roughly when I was about 21. And at that point, I knew things had to change. The firearms charge was still up. I was still up for it, and that firearms charge was a breach of probation. I'd done community service and all these kind of things, which led to even worse situations again. But I've got this firearms charge hanging over me, and now I have a son on the way. And I'm going up to court. Breach of probation for the other weapons and stuff that I've been found with. And my ex at the time, she's about 8 months pregnant, right? She's just about to give birth. And at that point, I'd actually had a decent job. I was like a photographer and all that. Like, I built myself up to management in the studio, became the area trainer for Scotland and North England. Like, I was trained, and nobody knew this stuff about me. Like then, like I'd had it well, like, you know what I mean. And there's people who backed me as well. They probably knew to an extent, but they backed me because they maybe, and I'm thankful for those opportunities. And ends up sitting in court. This judge is in an absolute stinking mood. Like, he's jailing. I'm talking custodial sentence. He's like, put a guy in jail for 2 years for smashing a car window, right? It was a breach of probation for something else. 2 years custodial sentence. That just basically means you're in the big jail and you're not getting it for 2 years. He's jailing. I've never seen so many people get jailed in my life, right? And I'm the last person that day, and my lawyer doesn't show up. So he doesn't show up, right? He was half-arsing it, this guy, anyway. Do you know what I mean? He was just in it for the legal aid, and then just like, whatever. Tell me what I wanted to hear, and then it was change the story last minute. This is the deal we're cutting. So he's like, oh, he's not guilty and all that. And then the show up, so I just plead guilty. So I pled guilty to it to try and get a reduced sentence. I was looking at a 7-year sentence for possession of a firearm off the bar.
What was a firearm?
So it was a flare. It was like something that deploys a flare, right? And I had like a serial number and all that on it. It was like a militarised weapon, right? And you know, they pull it out. So I got up in front of the court, and I'm like in my head, I'm going down 7 years. So the prosecutor's like, this is a firearm. It's got a serial number on it. It's registered military weapon. All these kind of things. And then the sheriff says, well, what is it about that makes it a firearm? And she's like, well, it's got a trigger mechanism. You pull the trigger and it deploys a flare. And I was like, okay, where's the flare? I was like, we don't have the flare, but we have the actual thing that deploys a flare, and it's a registered firearm. Like, there's no way of getting around about it. And he looks on and goes, he looks at his pen, he says, but my pen's got a spring in it. And I'm just like, what is happening here? Like, my lawyer's not showed up. Like, this guy's like, my pen's got a spring. And I'm like, what's happening? He's like, I know, but this is a serial number. It's registered firearm. Like, it's no like a makeshift thing. And he's like, stop wasting my time. Get him out of here, case admonished. And this was like the last session of the day. And I says, what does that mean? He says, it means you need to get out. And I was like, but that like community service, probation, and like that. He said, no, it'll go down in your record, but it's basically, and it's so surreal every time I tell it, and every time I think about it, like, I don't know if he's what he got up the road that day for his dinner, maybe he's had his dinner on. That was a miracle to me. Like, that
won the lottery.
I won the lottery that day, and so did my son as well. And because I was looking at this in the first 7 years of his life, and I've never been in trouble since my son. I was 23 at the time, and that's when I became a pro MMA fighter. And actually, for the last kind of couple of years, that was one of the reasons why I was kind of like struggling a wee bit to get back on the straight and narrows, because I was told I'd never fight again. I got my wrist broken. A police battered me one night as well, and broke my wrist basically. So I'd been out of the game for 2 years as well, and then started fighting professionally. My son was born, and like I say, I just started building a more positive future for myself. And granted, you know, nothing was plain sailing since then, but like, I'd done what I started setting out to do, and that was to become a professional MMA fighter, travel the world. Went on to audition for the UFC in front of Dana White in Vegas. I was training with Vanderlei Silva in Vanderlei Silva's gym. Like, I really, like, he was the guy that inspired me to get into it, watching him fight. Trained in Thailand, fought on TV, you know.
Became number one in Scotland.
Number one lightweight, and I was ranked like top 27 in the UK, and at one point I was like top 57 lightweight in the world. Like, and I know that's mad to think about just now, and like, there's thousands of fighters now. It wasn't as deep a pool as what it was.
UFC wasn't that big at the time either.
But like, I was up there on those rankings, and I was being recognised as one of the top guys. And UFC just wasn't kicking about that time. If you're there was no Scottish guys in the UFC at that time. It's just you just didn't get into the UFC. So, and when I did retire, that's when the guys started getting in. But that was the right decision for me at the time as well, was to pursue a new life and make new life what it is today.
Going back to my earliest sentiment about, I wanted to create this podcast or develop this episode to show distance travelled. That episode of David that we went into for the last 20 minutes is a very different person to the opener that we had, the intimate discussion where I reflected on how you're a father figure to so many. you are the monkey on a unicycle with the symbols. Like, they're two very different people. And it just shows you the stroke of luck, like a sliding door moment, a crossroads in your life, just change your life forever. And look at the impact that you've had on so many people because of that one streak of luck almost. Your life would have went a completely different way. You'd have been in jail, you'd have been dead. And just because of this sliding door moment, you've had such a profound impact on myself, Keegan, the fight team, your missus, and ultimately your son. One of the stories I want to share on the podcast, I know you've had 17 pro fights. You've had all these highlights, those rankings. I want to talk about the Bobby McVitie trilogy quickly. What does Bobby McVitie mean to you? Where does that stem from?
Bobby, I feel it's almost like part of me. Like, I hated Bobby that much that I just wanted to fight him all the time, right? And I think when I seen Bobby, I seen parts of myself that I didn't like. I seen somebody who I thought was cocky, arrogant, and, you know, maybe just cocky and arrogant. Yeah, like that, and that was sides of me that probably I couldn't see in myself.
I always think all forms of hatred are self-hatred to some degree. When you dislike someone or call people certain traits like that, I often find it's a reflection of myself when I've done that. I've checked myself on that in the past, and perhaps maybe that's what you were projecting then.
I think it was. And like, but Bobby hated me as well. Like, we didn't like each other. Both of us were top ranked in the country, and we wanted it all to ourselves, and we couldn't coexist without fighting each other. But I feel like Bobby helped me get over a lot of that. Like, he helped me through that journey. Like, he helped get me through the stuff that I was getting through, and hopefully I helped him. But just now, what Bobby means for me is, I really like Bobby. I think he's a great guy. Every time I see him, we cuddle and start crying about the old days. Like, but we've had a lot of stuff happened in our life, and we can reflect on that. The both of us were young guys going for the same thing. Same as all the other guys as well. See all these guys I was rolling about with samurai swords, and they were going through the same stuff I was going through. We were all in that together. Do you know what I mean?
You had no choice.
I like, you see them sometimes, and it's like, man, it's all done now. Like, we're different people. Like, if we could look back and have a word with ourselves, we would. Like, they're all right. Like, we'll just try to figure it out. And like I say, like, we figured it out through violence. It was the only difference with Bobby was that it got televised, and we got paid for it, and we got in the newspapers for it, and people celebrated it, and it was a consensual outlet where we all consented, and it was in a cage, and nobody else outside that would get hurt. And I loved fighting Bobby. I loved it. Like, see him thinking about it just now. Like, I'm not saying I would want to fight Bobby, right? Because I like him too much. Like, it's different times now. But I was processing all that trauma as well. Like, I was getting through that, and I was reliving a lot of it, but I was mapping it out. I was getting through it, and I just want to say thanks to Bobby for everything he's done for me, like stepping in the cage and battling out with me, because I loved that every second. Even they beat me, I loved to hate him. I loved to sit and think about how I was going to beat him, like plotting and stuff like that. Like, and he helped me make me the person I am today, which is a better version of myself, and he helped sharpen my tools in the right way. And hopefully me and Bobby can catch up soon and maybe get a roll together. And like, I don't mean a rolling sausage, I mean like roll about the deck together. But I love catching up with Bobby now. He's such a great guy. He's a lovely guy.
And here's a surprise, he's just here just now. No, one of the things that really stands out about that trilogy fight that I remember hearing about you, this is before the psychological warfare that's kind of shown in the UFC with Conor McGregor's mental tactics, some of the stuff that you teach now with mental performance. There was a social media stunt in one of your fights that I want you to touch on, if that's okay. I think it's a brilliant story.
Well, I think it was the third. There's a few social media stunts. One of the
I think you know what one I'm talking about.
Well, there were a lot of good ones. I think the one that sticks out to me was it the one where I led him to believe that I was weaker than what I was.
You were showcasing online that you were doing something different to what you actually were doing.
So basically, Bobby Bobby was led to believe that I was underestimating him, that I was out partying, messing about, drinking every night, you know, like he was led to believe that I was taking my foot off the gas and not taking him seriously. When in fact, I was actually in Thailand training with some of the world's best fighters. Russians, Americans, Thais, like, man, like, I might as well have had, like, one of their wheels and an axe, like, sharpening it with a picture of his face on it. Like, I was plotting, like, and, man, like, I had a cracked rib in training. I was running up mountains in Phuket, like, try to break the world records and all that, like, genuinely giving myself a heart attack running up this mountain. And, like, I was just so focused on beating him. And I found out, like, and Bobby told me selling, actually, he told me he was underestimating me. He wasn't taking the camp serious at all, so I thought I was slacking off. And then right before we fought, I just came clean. I think I released an article in the Herald and I went, he thinks I've been messing about. Like, I've been in Thailand. So I gave him a false sense of security, and then, like, 2 days before the fight, I took it away from him. And it was a proper mental welfare game. And then I stepped into the cage with him. I felt it. I could feel it. I could feel it. But again, like, and I feel like Bobby retired after that fight, and he said he was going to retire if he fought me. And it's, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And unfortunately, you know, Bobby did retire after that. And, you know, I think that he regrets that. Like, he does regret it. And I'm truly sorry for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I come at this perspective now, I'm truly sorry because he had so much, like, more to do. And I hope he fulfills that, whatever it is, like, he wants to do to fulfill that part of his life. But, like, he would have done the same to me easy. Yeah. Like, he would have done that to me, no problem.
I've heard you described as the gatekeeper to MMA. People either retired or went to the UFC after fighting you.
Absolutely, that has happened. That has happened.
So that psychological warfare and those mental tactics, and the mental tactics that you use personally to go into the cage, it's something that you're really enamored by now. I'm led to believe you're one of your core fascinations and where you spend most of your time with M23 mental performance and mastering the art of. Talk to me about those two businesses, what they are and what you do there.
So I would say it's a lot more well informed now. A lot less like that kind of style, like with the deceptive. That was very deceptive and stuff like that. But that was like the art of war. Like, that was battle. The stuff that I do now, the kind of mental performance side of it, is, I would say, in a more positive sense, and helping getting the best out of people's potential, like getting the best out of people, like helping them unearth their talents, helping them turn difficult situations into positive ones, helping give them the mental tools that they need to navigate through either rough terrain or thrive. And that can come in many different forms, but it all comes down to training. That's what it all comes down to. Mental performance training, mindfulness, training aspects of focus, confidence, you know, psychology. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counsellor. I'm not a qualified psychologist or anything like that. And that's like when I know my lane. I don't go down trauma routes. It's more, it's not like, let's talk about trauma. And those conversations can be on the table. If anybody ever wanted to talk to me and open up to me, I'm there. I can be that guy. But I don't probe for it. I don't go looking for it. As I help give people the tools they need to overcome adversity or to thrive and make things easier. So it's kind of like in a fight, learning how to throw the most effective combinations, like a punch, a kick, a slap, a knee, an elbow. It's kind, as a metaphor, it's kind of like that.
You refer to the tools and skills as like ingredients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the way I like to explain it, it's like when you see Batman and he's got his belt and he's got all his wee tricks and his wee tools and he deploys them, like, it's very proactive, isn't it? Like, he's never really reactive, and then even when he is, he's still proactive. When you get these mental tools, like, you can deploy them in these situations, and mine have been battle tested, because your opponents will try and gaslight you, they'll try and manipulate you, they'll try and deceive you, like, And it doesn't mean you need to do that. Like what happens in MMA is different to what happens out in the street. All right. I would never use any in that way, like ever, and I would never encourage anybody to do it. I would always want anything I coach to be used for good, for positive reinforcement, to help develop people, to help make them better. And the way that I used it for me to change myself, to overcome the trauma that I went through, to overcome the violent tendencies, to overcome my behaviour, to modify behaviour to be more effective.
And David, I'm going to hold my hands up. People that follow me on Instagram have seen me down your gym every Sunday morning with Keegan, doing a mental performance class. We've had one-to-ones, and I've been using some of the tools as part of my everyday for positive good. Right. For example, doing public speaking, I'm using this technique where you show me to hold my thumb, visualize like a motivating bar, like an energy bar or like a battery, and to turn that on and turn that up. I've seen myself in bathrooms and skyscrapers about to give a talk, listen to music, visualizing this kind of knob that I'm turning up, not my knob, a knob that I'm turning up, like turning up the volume. The aspect of archetypes as well, mirroring people that you find in a style that you want to perform like, whether it's, for me, I use it in stand-up comedy. I was on one of my good friend of the studio, Darren Connell's gig recently, and you asked me, what comedians do you admire? And I said, well, I actually admire Darren's style. He's very vulnerable and playful up there. So we did a session together where I was being vulnerable and playful, practicing that exact set. And it just shows you the versatility of those skills. And practically, I've been using them. This morning, we had a session together, Keegan as well, who's in the studio today. We were priming ourselves for this podcast, and look how well it's turned out so far.
Absolutely. And like hearing, you know, your stories, Keegan's stories, and anybody that goes out and does it, like I just like, that's like a moment for me. I feel a lot of pride as a coach or a mentor, if you want to call me a mentor, or, you know, that is where I feel a lot of pride when someone trusts me to go out and implement that in high stakes situations in their life, like going out and putting yourself in front of people. Like, are they going to laugh? Are they going to reject you? Like, are they going to respect you? And that takes a lot of trust. That's like, if I'm putting somebody into the cage to fight, there's a trust there. There's a big trust. And, you know, one mistake and that trust can be compromised. It's, you know, and it's, like you say, the versatility of it is something that I'm really intrigued by. Is like, anyone that has a mind, which is everyone, can utilise this stuff. And one of the big driving forces for me for doing this is to help people get access to it who might not get access to it. Like, your top performers in the world, like, know this stuff, but we guys like David Galbraith for yoga didn't know it. Like, and like, ultimately, like, I want to reach people. Like, I want people should have access to this, you know, this type of content, this type of learning, because life's just so much easier. Like, things are just so much better.
You can make sense of the world.
Yeah, it makes sense of the world, exactly. Like, and, you know, when you can make sense of what's happening around about you, then you can make well-informed decisions.
You don't act on emotion, you don't act on reaction, you act on in a proactive, calculated way.
Absolutely.
And it's not hard. And so it's not easy. These challenges, they don't become easy. The tools just feel light in your hands, is how I describe it. The challenges are still just as hard as it would be, but you have the tools and you can hold them lightly.
Absolutely. Well, let's put, like, let's say you didn't know you're being coerced or manipulated or gaslighted. These are like unethical forms of, like, let's say, mental manipulation. Let's call it that, right? And if you aren't aware that's happening and you're feeling terrible a lot of the time because people are doing that to you and you don't know what's happening, you're like, why is all these things happening to me? You know something's not right. But when you have these tools, like, you can just set boundaries. It doesn't mean they're a terrible person. Like, you know, we're all capable of it. It doesn't mean somebody's doing it from a bad place, but if, like, somebody does that, you can be like, well, I would like it if you didn't do that. And you can still have a relationship, but you have processes and techniques and methods to manage those areas and have a healthier relationship, have, you know, and be more proactive in managing these areas.
And if anyone wants access to this support, if you're Glasgow based, pop along to New Life Gym in Mary Hill. You'll see me and Keegan spend a couple of times there a week. or look at your website and look at your app that has been developed and is still in development. So we'll signpost that in the show notes below, and just head along to David's Instagram. I want to talk about your favourite job, and I believe your favourite job and perhaps most difficult job is being a father. What's it like being a dad?
Being a dad is my single greatest purpose in life. It is something that motivates me more than anything else. It's motivated me to change to who I am today. I want to be the best possible role model for my son and for like anybody who feels that I'm in a fatherly position to them as well. It's my single greatest purpose in life, and it's a big driving force. It's, for me, with being a parent, it was kind of like, how to break that cycle, like that, intergenerational kind of like cycle. And granted, like, I could look back and go, I've not got it right a lot of the time. I made a lot of mistakes. I look back at some of the methods I tried to deploy when I was younger. I think, well, I just wouldn't do that now. Like, I just wouldn't do that. Like, I remember one point I decided I was going to use a punishment tactic on my son when he was young, and right away I was like, this doesn't feel right, and I don't deploy punishment. I don't use punishment as a method with any children I work with, and it's not demonise anybody that does. Like, it can be used and it can be effective to an extent, but there's other ways to do things.
It's better to run towards pleasure than run away from pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one job in life that doesn't come with a manual or a process flow, is being a parent. And yes, you say there's been things you're not proud of and moments you're really proud of, but the overall trajectory based on how you were parented and how your parents were parented is different levels. It's an upwards trajectory from the experiences you've had, and that's going to carry on, hopefully, if and when your son has kids. And I feel like that's what you want your legacy to be, is you're a fighter, you're a coach, a mentee, a mentor, and all these things, and an artist, but I think your legacy, one thing that you'd be proud of is being a really good dad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you said earlier was, you said, I think, that there's no kind of instruction manual, and you're right, when there kind of isn't, but now I feel that there kind of is, like, based on what I've learned and what I understand, like, and this is a lot of the stuff that I'm developing through the application that I'm creating. It's like there's a map. You map out these areas and you find out how to do things, and ultimately, like, if you can become a coach as a parent, that's a real effective way to do it, because as a coach you would deploy methods in terms of like getting motivation, getting focus, attention, collaborating, trust, all the things that we do as a coach, you can utilise as a parent as well. And that was one thing that I really learned. It was, and equally so, the things that you learn as a parent, I've deployed as a coach as well. And again, it's like, I'll exhaust all avenues. I'll try not to use punishment. I might have used it accidentally, but I would always strive not to. And I feel that that's something that is valuable to me in terms of like the message that I put out there, is that there is other ways.
That's super powerful, mate. As we come to the end of this podcast, I want to ask you a final few questions, really quick questions. If I were to ask you, what do you think your fighters would say about you in one sentence? What would you bring that to life?
Wow. Perspective shift. They would say, one of my fighters says to me, whatever you say you're going to do, you do it.
What about your staff?
My staff? Tough questions. Maybe more playful. I think my staff would be more playful. Maybe be something along the lines of Jill's the real one that's in charge.
What about your best mate, Sam Falahati?
So he really likes the version of me that we spoke about. He thinks that's fun and funny, in a very playful and kind way. Yeah, he has laughs and jokes about the old Davy, and he pokes some fun at me for it, which I really enjoy.
What about Jill, your partner?
Jill, I know what Jill would say. Jill would say, I'm a dedicated father. I'm a hard worker. Honest. And handsome. Added in the last bit. That was me that said that.
And what about the kids you work with?
I think they would say I was brave. Most of them would say I was brave, cool, and sometimes a wee bit cringy.
David, I'm going to be honest with you. Much like you were talking about earlier, loyalty is one of your biggest values. I've been somewhat disloyal to you, and I've went behind your back.
Right.
Hope you're not going to kill me. It's in a positive way, I promise. There's no weapons. I want to tell you what they actually said about you.
Right, okay.
Davey has been more than a coach. When we first met, I was 17 years old, a young boy with only a dream and some motivation. I wasn't sure which direction I wanted to take MMA in or otherwise. Davey, over the course of 7 years, has given me the tools to become better as a brother, a friend, a partner, and a man. Davey has instilled many great values and beliefs in me through his coaching, and most importantly, his friendship. I owe him all the skills I've got as a fighter today. That was Lee Ferguson. Thomas Callahan says, David, I don't know where to begin. I was 13 looking for something to do, and I stumbled across your gym. The first thing I said to you was, are you really those guys from the posters? I found out in my 20s that my mum would phone you and make sure that I was eating properly and studying properly for exams. I followed you throughout this island with great pride. Your courage, confidence, and strength was unmatched on the mats. You've always been a massive inspiration to me. I love you, and I hope I can carry myself in a way that I can to make you proud. You've shaped me into a hardworking, driven, balanced individual. It's been far from easy and fair. You've had the chance to cast me aside, and you remained. For that, I'm eternally grateful. My life's mission is that of a son to a father, to make you proud, to hopefully contribute to a better life for the whole community, transform younger generations into great people. It's truly an honour to proclaim to the world that you are my coach. God bless. Love you, coach. This is one of your staff, Todd Milne. He said, I walked into the gym, a young guy lost in the world after leaving high school with no real direction. I only had a dream and vision to become an MMA fighter. Since then, many years have passed, and you quite literally guided me through the most difficult terrain of growing up and becoming a man. You've taught me how to fight, you've taught me how to coach, and you've taught me how to nurture our younger generations. You've shaped me into a more confident, resilient, all-round better human being. What you've done for me can never really be put into words. My coach, my mentor, my friend for life. Love you, mate. Here's what Sam Falahati had to say. 14 years ago, I walked into a MMA gym and met someone with qualities and traits that I admired. And I said to myself, I'm going to be a bit more like him. I'm proud to say I'm best friends with that person today. We've created many memories and have a friendship lots of people wish for. You've got the guns and I've got the hair. Throughout the years, through all the people you've come across from all walks of life, opponents across the cage, teammates, rivals, students, be it kids or adults, I can't speak on behalf of them all. But whether they loved you or maybe hated you because you're a mad mental cage fighter, I'm pretty sure they all respected you. I can, however, speak for myself. And Davey, there is no one on this planet I respect more than you. I love you, my friend. So I'm not going to tell you who this is from, but I'm going to just share your story. David really is one of the best guys I know. He makes me laugh, tells me stories, teaches me and encourages me. Over the years, we have experienced so much together, from martial arts training to mental performance training to photo shoots to cold water swimming and to bonsai creations. David invests a lot of time and effort into helping myself and others, and nothing is ever too much trouble. He has built my confidence and belief in myself. I hope to be a professional MMA fighter just like him when I'm older. He's more than just my coach, he is my mentor, my teacher, and my friend. We've always had such an amazing bond, and I will always try to make him proud. David is such a positive influence in my life, and I'm so lucky and grateful to have him in my corner. That's Adam. And here's what Jill had to say. The first time I met Davey, he bounced into the gym 10 minutes late and I was pure flustered. I thought, who is this weirdo with his mad hair, funny looking feet and Mortal Kombat tattoo? He started telling me a story, and a few seconds into it, I thought, this is the Disneyland version. He's absolutely fucking mental. I told him that, and this look of mischief ran across his face. He knew I was into him from the get-go. The scheme kid in me instantly recognised the scheme boy in him. 10 years later, we're here with a family, business, and a whole host of memories together. Behind his smiley, energetic demeanour, there was a pretty broken guy in there. Yet despite the hand he was dealt, and some of which he created, he was the most compassionate and caring person I had ever met. He was pretty tore up, but still put his David Jr. and me at the centre of everything. I could talk for years about the positive impact he's had on our lives, but I think the most remarkable thing is that his dedication to healing himself. He's worked tirelessly to mend those broken pieces, to throw out the bits that were too far gone and build new parts that serve him and ultimately us. At times, it's been grueling and ruthless for him, but he's consistently kept working to heal. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do, as realistically it's a forever action. We've formed the ultimate fight team in ourselves, so we go to war with each other, hold each other up when we get an 8 count, and corner each other through life. I wouldn't want anyone else in my corner. I've got one more from a Kate Foster.
Oh, wow.
My recollection of David as a young, quiet, red-headed boy walking into our kickboxing club in Clydebank, mostly keeping to himself. He was a very determined boy, and I remember him being quite hard on himself if he didn't pick things up quickly or felt that he could have done something better. He lacked a bit of self-belief, and I recall trying hard to talk to him into competing, as we saw a natural talent and a fire in his belly. I'm genuinely in awe of the man that he's grown up to be. Not only his own martial arts career, but the investment he puts into others, especially kids. I love watching him progress so successfully through life, and don't doubt there's plenty more achievements to come. We're very, very proud that David started his journey with us, and to think we have influenced his career, even in the slightest, warms my heart. We truly wish him all the best. So this is what the people actually have to say about you, mate.
Wow.
I think that's a wrap for the podcast.
Can't believe you've done that. Can't believe you've done that. It's one of the nicest things that anybody's ever done for me, man.
Really? Mate, you've done so much for me. It was a pleasure to
So
talk to all these
thoughtful.
people and bring that to life, mate. I really appreciate you. And similar to everyone who spoke, I can speak so highly about you too, mate. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Totally blown away by that.